Chief Executive, first of all, I thank you all for coming here to attend this press conference. I know that you have a lot of questions on the policy address, which is normal. The policies included in the policy address are short, medium, long-term policies. In addition, there is strategic planning in there as well. Let me first explain to you about the philosophy of my preparation of the policy address. 3 years ago, I took office as the Chief Executive. I've been working actively on reform. I want to build a foundation. Over the past 3 years, the tenor of my policies center on reform to change. I worked on cultivating a sense in society and the government for reform. Without that, my initiatives would not have worked. Over 3 years, I have built a solid foundation. On this foundation, I am able to work on problems and formulate strategic planning. So in addition to the short, medium, and long-term measures on issues we face, I also focus on long-term planning as well as systemic planning. Through reform and planning, our development direction will be clearer. So in this policy address, you see comprehensive reform and planning. The theme is to develop the economy and improve people's lives. By developing the economy, it gives us more capacity to improve on many different things with an ultimate aim to improve people's lives. So the theme of this policy address is deepening reforms for our people, leveraging our strengths for a brighter future. The philosophy behind is, as I explained, I have spent 3 years to work on the foundation through reform. Now I have to broaden and widen the reform because we have the conditions to do it. The goal is to work for the well-being of our people, because that is my goal. How do we develop the economy so that people's lives will improve? I think this is high time for us to leverage our strengths. There are many changes. The trade order of the world has been reshaped. In the past 3 years, we have moved from chaos to stability. We have a sound foundation. I think the government supports my philosophy. We all work together. We are focused. We need to make better use of our advantages. Some of these advantages have been emphasized, even though they have been there for a very long term. I tell you that we have to make better use of it. The government sets the direction, and the whole society works to create value for a brighter future, which is manifested in better lives. That's why in the last chapter, I focused on people's lives. I will first talk about this area. It's the original intention of my governance, because every government wants to work to improve people's lives, to give people a better home. However, we face challenges. There is physical pressure. We have a physical deficit. Our reserves have dropped. So we have to set priorities when it comes to livelihood projects. There are 3 areas set a while ago, and I think that they are good. They are social welfare, healthcare, and education. These have priorities because social welfare and healthcare affects everyone, no matter what age you are. Of course, we have to take better care of the underprivileged in terms of social welfare. So these 3 areas affect every person in society, and every person in society benefits. We have emphasis on certain areas, say, for example, the underprivileged under social welfare. We spend money on these 3 areas. I spend about 60% of the recurrent expenditure of government spending. These 3 areas are under the purview of 3 bureaus out of 15. So, on average, less than 8% on each bureau, which accounts for about 12%. If I divide by 15 bureaus, you will realize that the distribution is actually not even. The 3 areas I have mentioned accounts for 60% under the purview of 3 bureaus out of 15. The 3 bureaus accounting for 30% of the number of bureaus spend 60% of the recurrent expenditure. That means the resources allocated to these 3 bureaus is about 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, depending on which one you're comparing with. How much do we spend? In terms of social welfare, we spend about $357 million. On healthcare is $316 million, education $282 million. This is the amount spent every day, not a month, not half a year. So this is the afternoon. We have spent about $180 million on social welfare already. So every day we spend about $1 billion a day on these 3 areas. We do a lot of work. Correct allocation of resources is something that is always on our mind. I highlight these 3 areas because they're closely related to people's lives. The 3 areas affect everyone. Healthcare, education affects everyone, whereas social welfare affects the underprivileged. I have increased the amount of allocation by about 20%. When I took office, we spent about less than $300 billion, and now we spend about $350 billion on it. In terms of the chapter on people's lives, I am only going to pick on the salient points. I attach importance on housing, and as I said at the outset, that supply is important. We want to increase supply of housing and enrich the housing ladder. In terms of public housing in the coming 5 years, supply will be 189,000 units. The figure may be quite abstract to you, but I can tell you it's an increase by about 80% compared to the time when I first took office. Thanks to the work of everyone at that post, we successfully changed the pattern of small production at the beginning and larger production at the end. At the beginning, the pattern was about 30% at first and 70% towards the end. But now In the first 5 years, we can supply 60% of the supply and about 40% towards the end. The composite waiting time for public housing has reduced by 1 year, which is now 5.1 years. And there is something that I have worked heavily on. The supply of a home ownership scheme in the coming 5 years will increase by 50%. When it comes to housing, I hope that for different groups, in particular the grassroots, they will be able to move up. They can make use of white form or the green form purchase or the HOS scheme to own a flat. We want to increase the supply by 50%. In addition to enabling ownership, I can also achieve another goal. I'll increase the capacity of green form subsidized home ownership scheme. I increase the ratio from 4 to 6 to 5 to 5. When a tenant has purchased a flat, then the tenant household vacates the public housing for another household. Well, the secondary market for HOS is very popular. That's why we increased the quota by about 1,000 when it comes to white form secondary market scheme. Now is 7,000. When it comes to the alienation restriction for the green form HOS or HOS, the period has been reduced from 15 to 10 years. That means in 10 years' time, you will be able to buy a flat in the private sector. There was one time when the situation was different because speculation was rampant. But the situation is different now. It'll be good to give people a choice. That's in terms of housing. You'll find the details in the chapter. I just want to explain to you why I attach emphasis on this.
Hi.
On healthcare, it is a major area out of the 3 areas I mentioned. There are many measures in policy addressed on public housing. It is also the case for healthcare. For cataract, we want to enhance efficiency of treatment services provided. With our reform of the healthcare system, we will be able to increase 10% to 20% of our service capacity. For specialist services, with our reforms, we can also shorten 10% of the waiting time. That is about 10 weeks. For knee joint services, we specifically mentioned this because there is keen demand for such services. If we provide more in preventive care, we believe there will be less demand in treatment services in future. That's for public health care. For primary health care, ever since we have promulgated primary health care, we have seen an increase in the use of such services and the number of users. We want to have district health care centers in all 18 districts. Some districts only have district health center expresses at the moment, so we do want to increase the number of centers. We also want to provide more in Hep B screening. We have included this as a part of our chronic disease management. Since we have already established Primary Health Care Commission, we now need legal foundations to make sure we can provide comprehensive primary health care services, to provide them in an efficient manner as well. So we may change some laws in, say, the referral arrangements. We will also enhance cancer treatment and care. On Chinese medicine development, we will commission the Chinese Medicine Hospital of Hong Kong this year. We will have a screening a testing institute in the vicinity. We will have CM services for special diseases. We want to make sure there are integrated Chinese Western medicine services. Chinese medicine has proved to be quite effective in providing palliative care, especially for cancer patients. For mental well-being measures, we have a number of measures as well. We are going to regularize the 3-tier school-based emergency mechanism. We will expand it to primary 4 to 6 as well. I think that is quite a good measure. We want to have at district health centers a Healthy Mind Pilot project. It is quite popular. At first, this service was only available in 3 centers. In future, we want to expand it to 6 centers. Now, on labor, I very much pay close attention to the situation. We are going to prioritize local employment. This is something we must adhere to, this principle. In 2023, we have enhanced the supplementary labor scheme. Why did we do that? It is because in 2023, we projected that the labor force will decline with an aging population. The labor force peaked in 2018. We had approximately 3.67 million in labor force. In 2023, we enhanced the supplementary labor scheme, and we have seen a decline of 190,000 in labor force. And if we only count those under 60, it will be even less. We will continue to see a declining labor force. In 2023, we projected a manpower gap of 81,500 compared to the peak before. The gap was 79,600, which means in 2023, the labor force demand was, well, first we have to understand there is a decline in labor force. There's also an increasing manpower gap, which is why we had the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. We still have a keen manpower gap in many professions, including in the laundry profession, dishwashing profession, as well as the warehouses. But some professions, we do not really have a manpower gap, let me emphasize that. Which is why I have targeted measures in the policy address. For waiters and waitresses, as well as junior cooks, we have specific measures. Why did we focus on the 2 occupations? It is because they make up a majority in the labor we imported. But we have seen some restaurants importing labor successfully, whereas some restaurants have closed, and then they had some of their workers having to transfer to other restaurants, and the workers may be in unemployment for a while. So some professions, some occupations, some companies do have a manpower gap. Our policy is that we will combat abuse. If they indeed have such demand, we will allow them to import labor. We don't want them to have to close because they do not have enough labor. We need to make sure companies are not abusing the mechanism. So for the two specific occupations, we have targeted measures. We have extended the recruitment period from 4 weeks to 6 weeks for 8 weeks. So that is double the current period. We also require them to take part in on-site job fairs. The Labor Department personnel will be monitoring closely the situation. For the two occupations, we also have a manpower ratio of 2 to 1. So we will have to have at least 2 local cooks before the restaurants can engage or can import a junior cook. This is a manning ratio requirement we'll strictly adhere to make sure there is no abuse of the mechanism. We will also combat the engagement of illegal workers. We have been collecting data. We had the manpower projections in 2023. In 2025, this year, we want to have a midterm review of the manpower projections, focusing on the professions where they're importing labor. So that is on top of the two specific occupations we mentioned here, so that we'll have some findings in the middle of the implementation of the arrangements. This will help us combat abuse and make sure companies that need to import labor can continue doing so. On targeted poverty alleviation, we do see good results so far. The Strive and Rise program will continue. We attach great importance to children development. So under the Children Development Fund, for the work they have been doing, we want to incorporate our experience in the Strive and Rise program. We will also provide more funding. On community living rooms, the users have given positive feedback, and therefore we will increase. We'll have 6 additional community living rooms. On elderly, we will have 4,000 community service vouchers for the elderly. We will also have additional 1,000 residential care service vouchers for the elderly. We will also enhance the residential care services scheme in Guangdong so that those living in relatively poor conditions locally can retire in Guangdong. We are also providing more in child care services. We are going to increase the number of places for assisted reproductive care services. We are going to set up also a working group on aging society strategies. As I said earlier, there is a declining labor force as a result of an aging population, which is why we want to have a working group that targets these issues. We have 15 policy bureaus participating in such work, and they will also produce a report on this next year.
On transport, we have 3 green and smart transportation systems, including Kai-Tak. The first one will have a tendering exercise started this year to be followed by the other 2. When it comes to cross-district autonomous vehicle testing, we now want to provide a bigger area for the testing of autonomous vehicles. We want to see what it's actually like in operation. We want to link this with public transportation. We don't want the testing to stay on a drawing board on a pilot or beta basis. Now I turn to support local economy. I have launched 11 measures to support SMEs. I'm not going to go into details now. There may be a couple of initiatives that you are interested in. We have increased the expenditure on public projects. We have earmarked $30 billion in the coming 2 to 3 years. the amount has increased from 90 billion to 120 billion. But we see that there is a drop in works project in the private sector. That's why we want to increase expenditure in the public sector to give jobs to construction workers. The other initiatives is licensing for restaurants. In the past few years, we have been putting in place enhancement measures. We in the past vetted applications after the restaurant has started operation. We want to expedite the licensing approval for outdoor seating. We now put in place a joint assessment. So instead of going from one department to the next for approval, we now have a joint vetting. The FEHD, of course, will approach the directors to coordinate the work of different departments to vet the applications or the procedures together. If there are difficulties, the matter will be elevated to higher level. When there is diversified economic development mentioned in the policy address. In Hung Yuen Wai, there will be development of the food industry. In addition, we support the development of the agri and fish sector. We will grant a license to allow restaurant operators to allow dogs to be brought into the restaurants. Of course, we will iron out the details after consultation by the FEHD with the sector. What is important is that if a license is granted, it will be clearly stated, letting people know whether this particular eatery allows dogs to enter. I believe this will bring a lot of business opportunities to these establishments. Deepening reform. There is a dedicated chapter in my policy address on Northern Metropolis. There is a committee on development of Northern Metropolis set up. Previously, there is the steering committee. What's the difference between the committee and the steering committee? When I took office, I realized that engaging all 15 bureaus in such a large-scale project would require coordination and division of labor. We are at the stage where we have put in place planning. That means I was putting together a team in the past 3 years, and now they're ready to set off and to work on projects that bring greater benefits. The first stage is allocation of tasks and coordinated planning, which is the planning stage. Now it is a stage of acceleration. There are 3 working groups. I'm going to dispense with the details because you will find these in the policy address. What I'd like to say is that the Northern Metropolis accounts for 1/3 of the land of the area in Hong Kong. The first working group is headed by the Financial Secretary. The purview is to set up dedicated companies. That includes statutory or non-statutory bodies. I'm sure there will be more than one bodies or companies because we can't just use one company to manage such a large area. I believe that the individual characteristics of the different parts will be taken into account, leveraging on the respective strengths. Say, for example, this area will focus on this industry for this kind of development. Another area may have a different area of development and direction. So there will be more than one company or bodies. The working group will make recommendations. Say, for example, to set up one company in this area or one company in this large-scale piece of land or any other different methods. Dedicated legislation. Well, where administrative measures can resolve problems, we will do that. And if we need dedicated legislation, we will go to the LegCo and go through the necessary procedure. I believe that if there is a sound legal basis, we can expedite a lot of matters. Well, there is a dedicated chapter on industries. First, we work on attracting industry practitioners to come to Hong Kong and nurture local ones. There is also, in addition to that, a hybrid approach. That means we try to attract enterprises to come to Hong Kong and then nurture them. Well, we have signed an agreement on intention in relation to an aeroservice company in Europe, an aeronautic company in Europe. There are also other industries in upper, mid, or lower streams. In terms of emerging industries, there is the pharmaceutical product manufacturing industry. It's a hybrid approach. We attract companies to come to Hong Kong and then nurture them to help them grow. We have an advantage in this regard because we have a very high level of capability in healthcare. Another advantage that is unique to us is that we have a huge potential data, because if a registration can be obtained, then it may be used on the mainland. And there is the Sustainable Aviation Fuel, SAF. It is a global trend to use SAF. There is a successful local company producing an amount that is the second in the market. We work with the company and mainland government bodies. The production of SAF requires a huge amount of factors of production. We're working with mainland government departments to give them an advantage. So I'm sure that SAF is an industry that we have an advantage on. In addition to SAF, there is hydrogen energy and emerging technology industries. You will find them all in the policy address. However, I emphasize on the AI industry because, again, it is a global trend. If you don't do it, you will be left behind. AI can be used in many different areas. I promote government departments to make better use of AI. You'll find details in the policy address. Another area is governance. I've been working on strengthening our governance. We are a government that is result-oriented. We have the government-wide mobilization program. I said in this policy address that there will be a head of department accountability system. Management of the civil service is very important. So if they carry out their work properly, then it will be a huge boost to our efficiency. our civil service is the second best in the world. I'd like to say this. So we are comparable to the civil servants of any places in the world, but we can always do better. We want heads of departments to effectively manage their teams. That's why we have this accountability system for HODs, heads of department. In military lingo, it means that generals will manage their troops respectively. This accountability system targets executive departments. That means departments that execute government matters. Well, we have the accountability system. It's secretaries of departments and permanent secretaries that work on the formulation of policies. That is the accountability system. They are principal officials. I always search for candidates that are better. But we have also an accountability system for civil servants in the execution of policies. In English, it's very clear, it's accountability for performance. So they are accountable for their performance. If we task the HODs to ensure that teams are properly managed, it will be conducive to the implementation of policies. I want to say that heads of departments have their own respective duties and accountability to fulfill. In the past, we have dealt with heads of departments because of what they've done. But there was not really a system in place. When do we trigger the accountability system? Who's in charge of implementing it? What about outcome? That's why I have explained in a policy address the goal and the details. There are 2 levels and a dedicated team. There are 2 tiers. And we have also expanded the function of the PSC, the Public Service Commission. It has an additional function of carrying out investigations. When we have a result, we will follow the established mechanism and the code for civil servants to handle the cases. The maximum penalty for discipline sanction is dismissal. I want to make the accountability system for civil servants systematic. I've also explained in the policy address that, well, dedicated civil servants, we have a mechanism to encourage them to do better and to reward them. For sub-performers, we will provide them with assistance and, if necessary, discipline them. We use AI to improve the efficiency of government, efficiency as well as governance. So we have set up this AI advocacy enhancement team. We want to bring in a fresh view. We want our efficiency to be enhanced. There is another innovative approach. We will make use of a commercial approach in terms of LCSD venues. That's why we will introduce the market-based business models for LCSD venues, say for example beaches. We want to give members of the public more choices as to where they will go during the holidays. And there is another chapter about Hong Kong's advantage. I'm not going to go into details, but just a few points here. Shipping center, financial center, and education hub. I want to talk about an enhanced measure of the CIES, the new CIES, the new Capital Investment Entrance Scheme. Now turning into a trade center. Well, an initiative was mentioned, but I want to make sure that when I propose a measure, it will deliver results. That's why I plan to expand it in the next stage. The Financial Service will set up a committee to enhance communications with the trade. We want to expedite the development of a commodity trading ecosystem. In terms of financial services, we would like to set up a central clearing system for gold trading.
And with transport, we often emphasize that there should be an intermodal transport system of rail, sea, land, and river. The Transport and Logistics Bureau is trying to strive for more cargo sources. So from Chongqing, Chengdu, they have comprehensive rail networks which we can use. And to the east, we have the Shanghai port that can export goods to other places. Hong Kong and other mainland ports are complementary. We have great connections to Southeast Asia and South America. Because of our advantages, we have established channels for goods in Chengdu and Chongqing to come to Guangxi and Yantian port through rail, and then they can be shipped to our ports, which will then be exported. We will continue to see if we can establish new connections to have more cargo sources. On education, we have 5 top 100 universities. We are in a great position to develop Hong Kong into an international education hub. We have seen in the past year or two, with more non-local students admitted, we have seen a more vibrant environment with more exchanges between local and non-local students. It has also broadened the horizons of local students. For admission of non-local students, we have adjusted the ratio from 40% to 50%. But I emphasize that we will continue to provide 15,000 subsidized local student quotas. This will not change. We have a dedicated chapter for the development of culture, sports, and tourism. We are to develop Hong Kong into a premium arts trading hub. We are already in the top 3. So we are in a great position to do more. We also want to develop yacht economy. We have relaxed some restrictions. One does not need to have a designated yacht berth before they come into Hong Kong. We allow yachts to berth only by anchoring, so they can enjoy themselves in different parts of Hong Kong waters. But marine safety is, of course, very important, which is why we will have an automatic detection system detecting the movements of each vessel. We are very confident that we can continue to maintain marine safety. We also talked about in the policy address we'll have more yacht berthing spaces. Due to time constraints, I will give my closing remarks now. Hong Kong has many different advantages, including advantages with the support of the country as well as us being internationalized. When I talk to people from other places, they are often very jealous that we have the support of the country. We have the GBA plan. We also are a platform for bringing in and going global. We are have a world-class business environment. We have signed free trade agreements with different jurisdictions. We can help
2. If it's Tier 1, well, the HOD or the secretaries of department may take up the investigation. Or trigger the system. The activation mechanism is clearly stated. If it meets one of the 3 scenarios under Tier 1, then the Director of Bureau can activate the investigation. The circumstances of the matter will be considered before a decision is made as to who will activate the mechanism. I believe that there are many more opportunities for you to ask questions. I'm sure that you will need time to read through the policy address because there are 38,000 words. I'm sure you will have more questions. Secretaries of departments and directors of bureau will, starting from tomorrow, hold various press conferences, giving you further details. Of course, I will do interviews on different occasions. I haven't stopped since this morning. I'm sure you have been working very hard. I thank you all for your questions. It shows that you have read the policy address and you have had a very good understanding. Through your coverage, you'll give a better understanding to the general public about our policies. I might not be able to elaborate enough in the policy address, but I thank you for your help. Thank you.